Ground Crew Command Radio. We have the Laura Eisenhower with us for a huge show on all manner of things. Okay, am I live? Welcome everybody to Ground Crew Command Radio. This is your loving servant, the Unknown Light Warrior, bringing you a huge breakthrough show with Laura Eisenhower. This we got some huge topics that we're going to get straight into. Among other things, we're going to talk about what opportunity this new moon forms for starseeds as it relates to our ability to accelerate planetary liberation. What's going on with these giant pulse waves emanating from Antarctica into Australia and New Zealand, the Mary and Michael ley line, how it was interfered with, and how it reversed some critical aspects of the Earth grids that's fundamental to our ascension and getting free, basically. And of course, what we can do to our own personal grids, our personal DNA, that by default helps sort out Gaia's grids and fix the reversals on that, and how that relates to Saturn and Saturn's rings. Like I said, folks, it's going to be huge and deep here. And what really is the deal with machine consciousness, otherwise AI consciousness, that's trying to mimic our own, and how to transcend the frequency of that, but also work with Gaia's organic consciousness, ultimately to accelerate planetary liberation, and what to do about the false competing streams of information. They're not necessarily false, but they seem to contradict each other. This and so much more, including the next phase for our missions as light warriors, light workers, starseeds, ex-indigos, etc. We're going to be talking that as well. So it's a huge, huge show, critical for right now, for wherever you're at in your soul mission journey as a starseed light worker. This is Ground Crew Commander Radio. You're listening to the Unknown Light Warrior. And we're back. This is your loving servant, the Unknown Light Warrior. Laura, thank you for coming on. I'm the first one to relate to the fact that time is getting crunched up further and further and deeper into this so-called point of singularity. First of all, how are you handling that?
Oh, gosh. I've never really resonated with limitation on time, and perception can really alter time. I don't know how I'm handling the current energies, though. I mean, there's a lot going on. We'll definitely dive into it, but I mean, I'm doing great, but yeah, I mean, it's a time of bifurcation, and we can get into that as well. So
yeah, well, transition, right? And that's destabilizing by nature.
Yes. And just like the word ascension, bifurcation means different things to different people. I can kind of explain, how I see it. But yeah, it's sort of like a descending timeline that's unstable versus an ascending timeline that's more stable and based in our capacity to be sovereign and authentic and free from the hooks of dark Saturn. And I know these are some of the questions you'll be asking. So,
yep. And before I get into that, and it's easy to forget, you're going to be in Sedona on November 8th to give a talk for Portal to Ascension at the Humankind Center.
That's right.
And where we have the Tachyon chamber over here, Sedona Quantum Tachyon Healing, Now, what can you tell us just briefly about that before we really dive into it?
Yeah, so I'll be speaking in Sedona, and I believe it starts at 3 p.m. Arizona time, obviously. Saturday, November 8th, 3 p.m. It's at the Humankind Center. The website's www.humankind.center. It'll also be live streamed. And I'm going to get into the return of the cosmic ether and galactic origins. How does it relate to the here and now? How does this ether energy come in? And there's a very, very interesting history on all that, and how this weaponizes the weapons, how we become the override frequency, which is really the energy of ascension. So I go into the weaponized zodiac and how psyops and false flags are created based in astrological alignments to keep us in the shadow side of it all, but in a dependency bond with an inverted system, and how we're breaking all of that, and what is showing up astrologically and cosmically speaking to validate this. It's not just some concept. There's some real data and information connected also to the Venus transits that show what a profound time this is.
Yeah, that's huge. And folks, for those of you not so familiar, ether is one of the most original primordial energies created by Source. Now, of course, you can give your own interpretation on that, Laura. And it's one of those things, just like tachyon particles themselves have been either blocked almost outright or altered into something of an AI false derivative, denying us, well, a lot.
Yeah.
Whether it's super consciousness or immortality, denying us all of that. And again, both the positive military, off-world, galactic, in-Earth groups, and us here on the ground, 144K Starseed group as obviously as one example, we're unlocking the floodgates to bring that back in, along with the tachyon particles, to really move things forward in a huge way, but without the jarring, jolting experiences that we've been having. And just a quick shout out to John Strayer and Mark Zimzak, a personal friend of ours who were involved in organising and putting that together. So let's get into it, Laura. Where do you start with what's going on, right? Because we are reaching that, I'm going to use the term peak or climactic period of planetary liberation itself, hence the intensities. Let's start off with this new moon that forms a square to Jupiter and is the focal point of a powerful yod, which means finger of God, with Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Sedona, the sun and the moon. And these are big high-powered outer planets involved as well. So this will not be a subtle activation or event. First of all, and you are an astrologer by trade, if I can put it that way. What is the finger of God exactly, or the yod?
It's like a cosmic laser pointer, two planets in harmony with each other, aiming their energy into a third, forcing kind of a fated adjustment, right? So it's interesting that this yod is happening during this new moon, pointing at this new moon. It's kind of pushing us into a higher perspective. This grand cross that we're experiencing with the new moon in Libra, opposite Chiron, and squaring Pluto and Jupiter. I mean, that can be pretty heavy duty, and the yod is very symbolic in how, I mean, it's considered a finger of God. It's what I mean. What is it asking us, right? And it's really about discernment. Discernment lives where humility meets embodiment, right? And when we look at like God consciousness or Christ consciousness, it's not a negative ego, right? So when you have this kind of grand cross that's bringing up a lot of power struggles in relationships because of the Libra, it's also a new moon, which is a seed planting day to set intention for the future, and to just hold in the now, a strong intent. Libra, that has to do with justice, harmony, peace, balance, and relationships. It's going to push people into evaluating a lot of their personal partnerships, relationships, and their own internal balance. So when this yod energy, being involved, it kind of hits people, and hopefully it's not going to take much for them to really feel it. It's just like the difficult aspects become the proper catalyst to go through a growth period of major purification and the willingness to make life shifts that will bring you more into balance. Sometimes we have to see where things are really out of whack in order to get it on track. And I would say that this new moon is very much about that. Chiron is also conjunct Eris. Eris is another asteroid which is connected to strife and conflict. So sometimes, the greatest adversities are the things that set us straight. If a person's not tuning into the yod energy, they might be very, very distracted. The yod, though, having Uranus and Saturn involved, at least provides the synchronicities to push us into the higher mind. And our higher mind, for some people, comes out in stressful situations when you take the higher road. So everybody kind of handles it differently. But Uranus can also impact the nervous system. So if anybody's experiencing squares, it can put one in a PTSD loop where you're not seeing the bigger picture message. You're not feeling into, maybe what that could look like. But doesn't mean the breakthrough isn't right under your nose. It's just a matter of being able to listen to it, give your anxiety, bring the tension into words. A lot of times people are struggling with the sensation of things. Pluto is death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation. With squares to Chiron, it can bring up a lot of toxicity and a lot of stress and strife that is like really painful. So, there's a snapping point where it's like, oh, a revelation comes in. But if you're blocking that and you're not giving voice to what feels uncomfortable, you just want it to go away. And with that heavy Neptune, for some people, it's addiction. For some people, it's escapism. So this is a new moon to, with this yod, to really not be afraid of what you're going to uncover. Don't run from it, because ascension is really about unearthing something deeply profound within the self. We tend to look outside of ourselves. But I think, for a lot of people, they're going to take the higher road. Maybe a lot of relationships are going to heal and come into more balance, and some are going to end. And people, might feel the need to create stronger boundaries where you're not going to allow your energy field to be penetrated anymore, or attacked, or hooked into, or siphoned, or harvested. And this is why it's a very, very significant new moon for this time of, people awakening. Some of the choices people have made will come to a head where, you might see the ramifications of certain belief systems or certain things that you agreed to do. But have faith that, Pluto brings about alchemy. The ether energy brings about purification. And this a willingness to look at your wounds without acting out or denying that they're there is a sign of great spiritual maturity. And that's another big thing that's, coming to light. So the sun and moon are quincunx, Uranus and Sedona in Gemini. And then Saturn in late Pisces and Neptune. So this yod manifests as discomfort and a feeling of, being out of balance until you take the higher road in all things and say, you know what, enough already. So, and we know it's very common for humans to have to hit rock bottom before they create change. And I'm not saying that this is a time of rock bottom, but it's an ending of allowing certain things in your life to keep you in a state of woundedness. It's time for the warrior and healer to emerge instead of the victim, or instead of the negative ego that wants to deny and cover up its vulnerabilities.
Yep. I can totally understand. It sounds like another stiff session of shadow work is needed for most of us, at least, especially if emotions are up or something weird or went sideways in recent days, or let alone today in this new moon period. As you know, 3 days before and 3 days after a lunation, whatever the purpose or astrology of that lunation is about, it comes up in that 6-day period. It sounds like just another classic need to do internal work. place yourself in a bedroom for an hour and go up to our respective teams, show them the symptoms, because ultimately they're symptoms, and use the revolutionary, innovative power of Uranus, the transformational, going underneath the hood attributes of Pluto, Jupiter expanding it all and supporting you.
That's it. Jupiter expands it all. And an unintegrated, or the lack of shadow work, or, I mean, we can get stuck in the shadow stuff and not emerge. And then there's the denial of the shadow work. It can bring out the worst in people, or it can bring out the best. This week, the sun enters Scorpio, right? And then the sun is going to square Pluto. It's already squaring Pluto in this new moon, but where it's even more intensified. So, but then Mercury will make a trine with, which is a harmonious aspect with Jupiter. So Uranus connects with our higher mind and our authenticity and sovereignty. All this Plutonic energy and the sun moving into Scorpio, square the ruling planet Pluto. Yes, I agree. You kind of have to close the door and not fear the intensity of it all. Channel it carefully. Be careful with your words and the way you communicate with others. Things should balance out as the week progresses, but if some aren't careful, it could create loss. And it's not like we want to judge that if that happens, but what if it's something that you took for granted and you don't want to lose? You got to be very, very careful, right? So good communication is really important, and self-honesty. A lot of people fear the outer planets, and this is the weaponization of the zodiac. When Pluto comes up and you feel this feeling of death or letting go or the mourning process, and you can't really pinpoint something in your world that is bringing up those emotions, because very often we associate it with maybe a dog that died, or a relative, or a relationship breakup, or the loss of a job, things that we can actually say, okay, something was lost, and there is a mourning period. For some, these planetary energies are just moving through their system and they can't really pinpoint a particular event. They're just processing and moving deep, deep energy. And the medical industry has done a really good job at labeling it depression, or labeling the Uranus electrical energy that stimulates the nervous system as anxiety, and wants to diagnose it. When we can accept it and not fear it and not judge it or label it, or think something's terribly wrong with us, it's beautiful what can actually happen. And this is part of what we need to face in order to ascend.
No, I agree. You're absolutely right, because the only real issue here is, I find when I guide clients on how to separate themselves from XYZ, how to actually transmute, let's just call it the blackness around it, which causes the fear or confusion or false perception, and then get rid of that, get rid of the garbage around a trauma or a false belief or a vow, whatever it is, then they can get the gem, the diamond out of it. And it turns out to be truly and actually alchemizing whatever the issue is that they focused on. So it certainly resonates when you said, don't hide from it, sort of face it and recognize, don't buy the mainstream narrative on what you're feeling in terms of emotions, and just do that methodical shadow work session as needed, when needed. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, this yod, is it also, can it be described as a cosmic magnifying glass? Old funny thing of kids, little boys cruelly melting their little toy plastic soldiers by holding the magnifying glass in the sun over the toy soldier, and it just melts it, kind of thing. Is it a little bit like that?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like a cosmic laser pointer, right? I might have accidentally said Saturn, Uranus. They're not conjunct. Uranus is standing on its own in Gemini. Saturn and Neptune are very close to each other, right? Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus are aiming into this Libra new moon, literally. So our relationship.
And Neptune has only just gone retrograde back in
Pisces, so it's dipping into
which also helps look under the hood, just along with Pluto.
Yeah, Pluto.
So it's a great opportunity for shadow work.
Right, and Pluto just stationed direct It was retrograde for a while. Uranus and Neptune are retrograde, and so is Saturn. So you've got those three pointing at this new moon. And, what we're able to reflect upon, the forward motion of Pluto is helping to alchemize. And so major growth is happening. And yes, retrogrades always help us to look under the hood, go internal, and dip into, what's happening within. What is the conditions of Uranus going inward is finding your own personal sovereignty, being happy, just being you, not trying to fit in, not just going with the status quo. And when I say status quo, I mean, that's really a Saturn energy, and we're flipping Saturn, right? As Saturn goes direct back into Aries and Neptune goes back into Aries, it's spirit in action. It's literally the solar plexus, the ego identity of Aries and Mars, working with Saturn and Neptune. It's setting a new foundation where Saturn is no longer a lid or an energy block or the control matrix, tyranny and control and the control system. It's now a container because it rules the law of structure for the multidimensional, for the dreamer, for the tree of life template to be restored with the branches open with a root system. So what they're trying to do to mess that up is a lot of, AI, CGI, fake news, just more of all that, where nobody knows what is really going on in the news. And but the veils are thinning. And what it's calling forth is, can we align with our creative imagination and write the script of our future? Can we manifest from that place? Because there's a lot still going on that wants to hook into that and siphon and harvest that creative imagination by giving us, more fear, more confusion. But we do see positive change happening, but there's still a lot, there's a ways to go. And the best that we can do is to unhook and find that creative flow within ourselves, instead of looking outside of ourselves to gauge, where we're at and where we're heading. I mean, we're moving more into, the sovereign creative power that we've been tricked out of, and reclaiming.
So basically, reduce external focus and increase internal focus, especially when it comes to internal healing and shadow work, while these huge heavy hitters are in retrograde.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, which is involved in the this yod, is just saying that this adversity that might strike because of this grand cross, which is bringing up a lot of tension, is also pushing us into a breakthrough. It's kind of like a breakthrough of, you know what, I'm not going to eat this anymore. This is not good for me. I always break out into a rash. I'm not going to be in this relationship anymore because I'm constantly crying and doubting myself and I'm not happy. I'm not going to have this career anymore because I don't like my boss, and it might pay well, but it's not in alignment with my integrity. It's a breaking point, right? I'm not talking about things in my life, but of course there's going to be my stuff too, but I'm not going to go there. I have nothing to hide, though, if you want to ask. I'm just saying that for a lot of people, it's that breaking point, because you can't go down that road anymore, because certain things have become so toxic and are throwing you so far out of balance that now it's time to answer to your God self, because the external God also exists within, right? So, this is just metaphorically, well, it's not metaphorical. It's this configuration, is just showing the grace of God, the grace of the Christ consciousness, the Christos Sophia that dwells within, that knows exactly why it's here, exactly, what to do. And it's been informing our human self for a really long time. Whether we ignore it, whether we listen, depends on the individual. But something is lifting us out of the funk to see a much larger picture. And I think people will find a great empowerment emerge from this challenge. This scorpionic energy in Pluto, and the squares can be, very heavy. There's going to be casualties. The squares very often bring about loss, but not for everybody, right? It might be something we hear in the news, like we heard about Charlie Kirk. It could be something, in a bigger picture sense. I mean, there's always that potential, but in our own lives, when Pluto strikes, and especially in a square, can we move through the birth canal? Can we move through this transformation cycle without getting caught in the heaviness of it all, to where we're incubating without movement? and
Yeah.
it starts to become stagnant. So that's why staying creative is really important. Moving the physical body, writing things out. Sometimes with the Pluto squares, people don't want to be here anymore. They're just really they can't seem to move the energy because it's a square. And this is where the yacht is helping with the creative imagination and perspective, and inspiration. Uranus in alignment, also with Saturn, that the fact that all three outer planets are in harmony with each other is basically saying the trajectory of ascension is here. What are the unresolved wounds? Ophiuchus, the 13th sign connected to ether, Chiron rules. So it's saying, the unconditional love we bring into our deepest injuries and wounds is where the true healing resides. I mean, as you think about religion and punishment and sinner and just the way our self-worth has been also determined by the grades we get, the income, we receive from whatever, so much of us has been owned and projected upon that we've lost ourselves to it. So this reclamation is basically saying, time for the toxicity to end, time for the pain to turn into purpose, to not have shame connected to it, and to allow the sensation of these outer planets that move through us to bring about your creative brilliance. And
definitely. I totally agree. Once again, it's alchemizing transformational directions that we're being pushed to, whether we like it or not. We're being dragged through it. And again, I always tell starseeds, look, find the right tool, the best tool for that internal shadow work, and it makes any emotional symptoms just very short-lived and transformational and alchemical in nature. Like you do have that degree of control over things if you know how to do your shadow work, and that's not a huge secret of any kind. So let's move on. Where does 3i Atlas fit into all this? Just quickly before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. But I just wanted to say real quick, Dark Saturn in its higher octave is self-mastery, right? And integrity and anchoring timelines, right? So, be an empowered scriptwriter. I think it's very interesting, with these comets or so-called comets, that there's new energy coming in. And so we're also being visited by 3 other comets. And 2 of them, one is called Comet Lemon, and Comet Swan. And they come closest to the Earth this week. In ancient times, comets were considered to be omens, broom stars sweeping through the heavens, and clearing stagnant energy from the Earth. And I really feel with the planetary configurations that, these energies coming in are very significant. So 3-1 Atlas supposedly is not even from the solar system. But when we look at the energies of ascension and the galactic core of Andromeda and Milky Way being one with each other, the fallen system of Milky Way is literally returning to its galactic core. It's like become one again. And when the ether energy, which was in reversal in the reversal grid technology, the dark technology that was placed on top of the planetary grid network, it was basically to keep the ether energy like in the ground, right? So that we would be a dumbed down humanity with the so-called powers that be, which are really the powers that stole. And this architecture and just this Illuminati, system, the 13 families, which are the inversions with the mothers of darkness of the 13th flame and the 13 tones. So the reversal grid network collapsing is allowing for the 13th tone to land, the 13th sign, which they rigged the whole system to keep out. They feared the return of the mother, reclaiming her physical planet, and they fear our awakening. They have for a long time. That's why they do everything they can. So I think these comets are showing an omen of something's arrived, and there's something, because what's out there is also in here, right? So
yeah. Okay. Well, let's before we get into the Michael Mary ley line and how that was interfered with and reversed, just quickly, what do you know about the giant pulse waves emanating from Antarctica into Australia and New Zealand, as well as the plasma waves that have been hitting Earth lately?
I don't know the particulars, but I can just intuit, the Australia energy, Uluru is the 13th gate. You have Antarctica, and so many, Secrets of Antarctica. Brett Olson just wrote a book about it. The Nazi bait, all sorts of things, even the Atlantean energy and things going on underground there, and New Zealand. I mean, and the plasma waves, it's, everything is about the stargates and the ley lines repairing all the different tech and artificial stargate, and just the use of it all, beginning to fall away, I think is changing the nature of certain areas that were impacting the rest of the planetary grid network. So when you have an awakening humanity, you don't have a weaponized humanity. Yes, there's still weaponized humans. Yes, there's still geoengineering. Yes, there's still chemtrails. But when you begin to awaken, you begin to alchemize and de-weaponize the weapons, because you're no longer a weaponized human. And the nucleic acids of our DNA are elemental: earth, air, fire, water, ether. The mitochondrial DNA is connected to ether. So as we're stepping more into that, as it's a part of the sun moving through Ophiuchus every year, November 30th to December 17th, over the course of time, it's going to have a huge impact. So the Schumann resonance, the plasma waves, the way that the planetary grid network, the true original network, is rising, and the dark overlays are collapsing, which some would call the simulation. Dark Saturn is falling away now that it's merged with Neptune. The veil is thin, and Saturn no longer is a container that is imprisoning us. And so I feel that what you're talking about is a direct sort of validation of this process that we've been in. People aren't taking it anymore, and the ones that have been really caught in the net, many are coming out of it. So in this time of bifurcation, I don't see a split as much as I see two timelines. One is descending; it's not healthy. It's more entanglement, and one that is removing the cords and moving forward. But there's a bridge between the two, and there's a lot of, star seeds and Earth Warrior mission, whatever you just resonate with as what you call people like us on a ground level. There's going to be so many healing centers and advanced tools and modalities that are already out there, and more disclosure of, healing technology that will help people to overcome. So I feel that victory is already here, and there's no way to reverse it. So now the Earth is responding. The geophysics of the planet is changing. The dark weaponry is falling away, because it's falling away within humans. And we have to realize that every single person that awakens has a huge impact on the collective and on the planet. And when you're in your authenticity and truth, you actually collapse the control matrix in the different locations you're living in, and you offset and override things like 5G even. So we're bringing in that plasma wave energy as well. And parts of our body will show the whole map of the stargates and ley lines. There's I've seen maps of the body that connect with different. I mean, we are a living replica of the planetary system in its most organic form. But we have to remove everything that has kept us in an inversion and in a digression that has caused us to age. And there's all these Anunnaki overlays that were placed in our DNA and the grid.
Yeah. And that has the respective effect, extremely positive effect on Gaia and her grids, respectively, the more we clear ourselves.
Exactly. Because when we're born, we hold where the planet currently is at, because the cosmic intelligence of the planetary alignments is literally healing its body and its system, right? It knows how to do that. But if they can weaponize that and throw it into a psyop or a false flag or an inversion that keeps us in that reaction and trigger and fight or flight and trauma loop, then that's literally what batteries up the artificial timelines. So people are just seeing through it a lot more. I think the numbers are, much greater. And I just feel that those locations are very, very significant. I'm going to have to look into it more. But I know Australia, Uluru is the 13th gate, and everything shifted once that really landed on the planet. That's why the whole 13 families and the whole, Illuminati and the Dark Mother reversals are all to put that, in this digressive spin, biwave, now it's triwave. And when you look at, dark mother reversals and the mothers of darkness and all the ritual and everything, it was literally to rig the whole system away from reclaiming and reconnecting with the forces that will, ascend us. And it's being soul centered. When we look at 5D, it's being authentic. It's being sovereign. It's not something granted to us. It's something that we unearth, like a treasure that's been buried within. And we begin to switch on that dormant DNA. It relates to what opens up on the planetary Gaia level. But
Yep.
it's still going to happen whether we're there or not. It's just, are we going to be able to experience it? If we're not doing it and we're not actively doing that inner work, we're just going to see more of the same thing until we're ready to cut the cords and say, you know what? I don't need to be in relationship with that anymore. I don't need to consent to that, because that's dark Saturn. That's the Saturn moon matrix part. But the higher
So we just say that upgrading our internal work, or tools for that matter, upgrades Gaia and her ascension and all of our ascension.
The two go hand in hand, because if you're not really doing that work, you're only going to reflect and have the mirror back at you, really the state of soul development you're at. But you'll see different synchronicities and opportunities to step into something far greater, but the addiction matrix is not just drugs and alcohol. It's addiction to TV. It's addiction to false news. It's addiction to, it keeps one in kind of a web. And even though that might be crumbling and being exposed and falling apart, the fact that it's crumbling, people are like, oh, wait a second, who is that Diddy guy? Who is, what happened with Epstein? What is all this? And so that rude awakening forces people to let go and say, I'm not going to feed that system anymore. And it's being held finally more accountable, but not, maybe as much as we'd all like and what we really know is happening. But for each soul that moves on from it, they start to have a completely different experience, just like you would if you break up with a narcissist or abuser and you're made of more and you deserve better. It's going to come.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yeah.
It is important for starseeds to really focus on, okay, how can we accelerate this process of the internal and external reflection and detachment, and not participating, whilst smoothing the planetary liberation process at the same time. And that's been a bit of both an art and science, which we'll get into with this example. The Michael Mary ley line, how it was interfered with and who interfered with it. And before you answer that, let me just take a wild guess, because it dovetails into what we've just been talking about, which is, as an example, they express in the form of rituals on critical grid points and nexus points of the ley lines and what have you, gates and so forth. They do a ritual where either a man or a woman expresses the Divine Mother or Divine Father in the complete opposite reversed way, which then has the effect of reversing what I call scalar wave programs within that respective grid and nexus point, which then affects all of Gaia, which then affects our ability to ascend, in other words, not, and maintain the status quo. Now, you would use a different term as opposed to scalar waves, which I think is divine masculine and feminine electromagnetic energies. So with that said, how was the Michael Mary ley line interfered with, and who interfered with it?
Well, the Sons of Belials and the Black Suns are considered the main controller groups on the planet. So the Nephilim reversal grid, the Niberian diotic crystal grids placed on the Michael Mary lines, Stonehenge area. The Michael Mary lines go from like Cornwall all the way up to Glastonbury, and even further. And this is a major. These are major ley lines of hierogamic union. The Michael Mary, the Arthur Guinevere, the Christos Sophia, the Albion and Cathar bodies were unplugged. So when the Nephilim reversal grid, basically, harvests and siphons, and the Niberian diotic crystal grid creates, this checkerboard mutation that causes, aging and just everything that has digressed us into what we think is being human when we're not even close to living our true potential. So when really important, significant relationships come together, when people integrate polarity within the self and begin to raise their consciousness into, the awareness of all that, not the inversions or what's been passed down to us, the patriarchal, the victimized feminine, and it's not gender specific. Sometimes the feminine can be very patriarchal and the sensitive male is, it's, and just what they're pushing on our children, right? So a lot of grid workers have gone to that area. Lisa Renee and her group, energeticsynthesis.com, Lisa Renee, and the Guardian groups here, and souls that just feel drawn to go to that location, and all over the world, people are called to go to different locations, do grid work, and you begin to collapse that kind of energy by not just being there. You're actually there on a conscious level. So ley lines can carry trauma just like our nervous system. It's like the nervous system of the planet. So when all these dark rituals and dark technologies were placed in these locations, the land has been in a lot of pain, and going there for a lot of people brings up a lot of emotion because you're healing it through your being. A lot of past lives might even light up. Ley lines are Earth's energy meridians, right? So they connect sacred sites and power points all across the globe. So when you're working in energy on the Michael Mary lines of hierogamic union and that integration of polarity, it travels, so when
and it affects timelines and whether we ascend or not and get free or not, long story short.
Yeah, I mean, and that was a really critical place because the manipulation of the planetary grids is connected to artificial timelines, and the kind of dark weaponry also is symbolic of the pentagram going into the ground, where the ether energy, the dodecahedron platonic solid, was put in reversal. So when you have damaged mitochondrial DNA and you don't have that ether energy, it's very hard to heal and purify. So that disconnect from the mother, the dark mother reversals, the mothers of darkness, the stories that were given about the divine feminine or even Magdalene, these aren't the full stories. We don't even hear about Sophia. And a lot of these books and texts were rewritten to place a lot of blame on the feminine, to invert Lilith, to blame Eve, to just say that Magdalene was a repentant whore. I mean, none of that is actually true. Yes, there are shadow versions that are more imposter versions of what these energies really represent. So the Sophionic story, there's a lot more to it. The 13th tone and sign represents the remedial code that braids the 12 strands back together again. So the 12 tribes, and just a lot of timeline manipulation, a lot of trauma, the Cathars and the Essenes, and so much, massacres with the Lumerians and Atlanteans. Okay. So it's to really wipe out those that would be holding those codes, right? But you can't destroy a soul, and we're still here. We're still showing up. We still incarnate. So
basically, to alchemize and transmute these negative situations that these reversal grids empower, and pick your negative event, whether it's digital ID or World War III attempt 157 or whatever. Would you say it's critical to heal your internal so you can channel ultimately to channel enough light to be able to heal the external grid situation that's fundamental to getting us all free?
Yeah, well, the zodiac is not just a wheel in the sky. It's a living energetic architecture woven directly into Earth's ley lines and magnetic field and grid system. So the planetary grid system is based in the elements and, even, the zodiac. So when you're born, you're impacting, the planet immediately. So because we're elemental beings as well, when we awaken, we even take down the EMF grids, the inverted ley lines begin to correct. If we're in the inverted expression of the zodiac, we all have our zodiac map. If we're, on autopilot, if we're just living the Saturn squares and the difficult aspects, and we're just looking outside of ourselves and looking outside of ourselves, we're literally a battery to these artificial timelines. Once we really awaken, we begin to dissolve and flip some of these more challenging aspects, which the ether element, Ophiuchus, the 13th sign, is greatly impacting, because it's the alchemist turning lead into gold. So dark Saturn in these squares where one feels enslaved or bound or blocked or just is in that unconscious servitude to something that they don't realize is super dark. Once you start to become conscious, you change everything around you. Your life changes, your health changes, your relationships change. How you relate to the planetary body also changes.
And impacting the planetary body.
What's that?
And impacting the planetary body in a positive way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, we're a walking node, like a living antenna that's connected to the celestial terrestrial system. And that's why planetary grid work is internal healing work. You're syncing your body with the Earth's divine architecture instead of this overlay that's very much about, what comes through the television, the GMOs, the geoengineering, and, how all that's engineered. We've been engineered. So it's that compartmentalized ego that is now recognizing it can be a vehicle for soul and spirit, not just this compartmentalized personality, that wears a label and is in this divide and conquer mentality with the rest of anybody who thinks different. That's the healing that we need to step into. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm noticing a consistent theme here, which is one, which we've already discussed, which is basically you fix the internal, you fix the external by default almost. And there's a lot of reversals of grids within Gaia herself. And that reminds me, and that's what allows, let alone supports, negative events of any kind, whether it's from a bad day to a world war, whatever. That's it. Reversals of the grids, which is certainly one of the main foundational things. And it reminds me of a pretty good authority on all things DNA, Toby Alexander. He really emphasizes on resequencing and reordering something called scalar wave sequences within your DNA template, and then that, that reaches a certain critical mass amount, it expresses itself by default into Gaia's scalar wave reversals in her grids. They start getting fixed if enough of us do that, and lo and behold, we're charging headlong or head straight, whatever, to planetary liberation and return to galactic society finally, which is ultimately what it's about, right?
Yeah. And this is, what happens is it's like whatever false flag is going to be thrown, think of all the people that won't fall for it. Think of all the people that can see through it. You had the architects and engineers for 9/11 that were like, hey, we're not even conspiracy theorists. We just know that this is not possible. This cannot happen. Right. So the sharing of information, people are getting their channels back. I got my YouTube back. That's a positive sign. It's when you don't consent to inverted Saturn, when you allow yourself to embody sovereignty, you're changing the planet. You are changing the trajectory of your life path. It's that dependency bond that comes through these trigger events and these false flags that keep people hooked in. Like, I know so many people that think they're awake, but they're literally addicted to hearing news and the doom and gloom. And it's just, everything is so dark all the time. But that's taking our creative imagination and it's literally feeding it. Because this is a vampiric parasitic system that requires our energy and our creativity for it to even function or exist. So when we choose to not consent, when we can see through the anomalies, we can see through the false flags and we call it out, even if blue beam happens, how many experts out there would be able to say, look, that doesn't look right, that doesn't make sense. And it floods the internet, it floods social media. They cannot manage it anymore. They can't just shut everything up, and they tried and it didn't work.
Because enough of us have healed and cleared and activated ourselves and resequenced whatever into back to divine order within us, which then pushes everything in the external in that far more positive and liberating direction. Because
it's a relationship, just like when we're in a partnership with somebody, the micro macro, it's what are we in relationship with? If it's an abusive relationship, you're going to lose your self-worth. You're going to lose your creativity. You're going to lose everything to that person that literally almost owns you. Right. And until you find the self-worth and your sovereignty within yourself, you're going to be in a toxic situation that could eventually kill you and harm you in whatever way, whether that's a disease or it kills you. So the same thing with the system. It's a false authority. People mistake it for caring about them. It doesn't mean it's all bad, but for us to truly understand what's going on, we have to find the truth within, or else we're not going to be able to navigate through all the deception. And we have to also understand that a lot of these players are blackmailed. They're under some kind of mind control. They're running altars, and they've been involved in multi-generational trauma-based mind control even. So, when that theater collapses, because people understand that a lot of influential people out there are operating, from that background, we can be more understanding and able to provide solutions, because a lot of people definitely are too afraid to come clean and come forward. They're manipulated. It's horrendous. Right. And it's been a lot for all of us to wrap our heads around just how severe it is and how deep it goes. But the more we understand, the less it's going to be about us against them. We're going to understand a much, much bigger picture, where it originated, how we can undo the harm, because we want to de-weaponize humans. That's going to be like the new healing. And also, help children that are victimized and stop the trafficking, and, teachers and parents being more aware of what kids are saying and what they're crying out to be heard about. And not just turning a blind eye because it's all about appearances. How many kids, are being abused and try and speak up, and they're just ignored? Or how many people are bullied and traumatized for the rest of their lives because they're not really protected? And so we all have to step up to the plate in our communities and recognize the signs and begin to dismantle it as best as we can and offset the light. It's not so much about battling the dark. We have to enhance the immune system for the parasitic forces to be expelled. But it's going to take a lot for humans to wrap their head around what people like you and I know, and our listeners.
Would you agree to help alleviate and really make breakthroughs and even bigger strides forward with that? Would you agree with the basic concept that you can't help others and the world if you can't help yourself?
Absolutely.
And therefore, I always tell 144K members, look, never mind what's going on out there. Put 80% of your focus in terms of healing and activation on yourself, and 20% focus on healing out there, and you're going to have a far bigger impact that way.
Oh, totally. And it just
old 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's part of the balance too. I mean, with this Libra new moon, we have to, really tend to the self. We're the creative vessel. We're writing the script of the future. We want to be, grounded. We want to hold our light in the physical. And we want to, speak truth and enhance the love in our lives, expand upon that, and have, compassion and understanding and do our best. That alone does so much. And to be discerning, and when you give yourself permission to be yourself, you're not going to be hoodwinked. You're not going to be led astray, because where your boundaries are. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks if you say no, if you don't want to go along with something. And that, 2019, 2020 were why so many people chose to do something they might regret now. It doesn't mean, though, it can't be alchemized and de-weaponized, though.
That's right. Well, speaking of things that affected our DNA, and just to begin to wrap up, because we're reaching the top of the hour, the dark version of Saturn, how does that affect our DNA?
To me, the dark Saturn represents like the seals and frequency fences. So the prison planet is, dark Saturn. Dark Saturn is tyrannical. It's controlling. It's limiting. And it's very, very serious. A lot of people who have Saturn squares have suffered, all kinds of abuses from authority. Feel very energetically blocked, feel incredibly insecure, feel overpowered, and feel constant, unfortunate reality checks. Not like true reality, but something from the system coming in and just making life difficult. So it's also the planet of self-mastery. That particular challenge is going to become your friend. There's many different stages to moving from the lower octave of planetary energies into the higher. For Saturn, it's going from being controlled and limited to being in self-mastery, to work with the law of structure where it can accommodate your expansion and growth instead of suppress it. So when you come up with your own rules and you are in touch with your inner authority, Saturn rules the teeth and the skeletal system. You already are a law of structure in your physical body. What rules and responsibilities do you want in order to be a healthy person versus the ones that are imposed on you, or the ones that were thrown at you in an abusive way that has caused you harm and has caused you to shrink and want to hide or so dark Saturn can become discernment, boundaries, and a structure and container for the multidimensional, for the creative imagination to flow through that law of structure to manifest heaven on earth. So all the aspects happening right now in this new moon and Neptune and Saturn moving into Aries is really time for the divine human. And there will be all sorts of attempts to trick us out of that. And let's remember that this is the most potent and creative time. Ascension is not something you can that can be destroyed. It's only something we can be distracted away from. So it's just time to really get in touch with it, because a lot of people that have heavy Neptune tend to want to just escape. And sometimes a lot of people who have addiction problems because they can't function in this society. It's a different addiction than being like addicted to shopping. It's people that literally want to escape. They feel everything. They're empaths. They feel the collective. To just bring more voice to it, because this is the thing. We want to turn pain into purpose, not keep medicating it, not keep running from it, because it's the key to our ascension is to begin to look at those wounds, realize we're all wounded. We were born into a gaping wound, and that the reunion is with earth, with spirit, and with the inner masculine and feminine to rebuild that divine template. They're so afraid of that. They literally harvest us in that ignorance or amnesia of that true blueprint that we all hold, that the planetary system itself holds.
Yep, I see. Okay, well, as it relates to our DNA, how can we retake control of this apparently 98% of our DNA now that the negative energies of Saturn have been transmuted and the rings of Saturn apparently dissolving?
Yeah. So Saturn used to be a sun. So the rings of Saturn dissolving is taking, the artificial, the simulation, the Saturn moon matrix, how it feeds into one another, how it's impacted the grids, how it impacts us. Mm-hmm. And it's having mastery over it. It's like not being a victim. Okay, Chiron is a part of it, but it's connected to the ether and Ophiuchus. You're not a victim if you're bringing it to the surface and allowing love to come in. And that begins to break down the Saturn moon matrix, because it's the great alchemist. Usually our wounds keep us in this dependency bond because we're looking outside of ourselves for somebody to fix it. When we take Saturn and it turns into self-mastery, then all of a sudden the moon isn't in its artificial sort of inverted lunar. We're not, and the divine masculine and feminine crash that dark tech, and it begins to clear out of the planetary grids, and we begin to dissolve the frequency fences, the things that have limited us to 3D, but that 3D is lower chakras. That 3D is the personality matrix. We begin to, and a lot of us are already there, we're more soul-centered. And in that soul-centeredness, we're 5D and beyond. We go back to Tara, we go back to Gaia, we go back to the avatar matrix of Lyra. We get back to the 0-point unified field. And in that consciousness awareness, when we can maintain that and stay connected to it, it literally dissolves dark Saturn. Our physical body may take a little bit of time to catch up with where our consciousness is going. And that's why our patience is tested, and Saturn, the Lord of time, that's all changing. We know that, right? So we're not so bound to it. We're now, in that avatar energy of, you can't make it go away, but it's no longer, you're no longer in chains. You're no longer ignorantly thinking you're free either, because now the cat's out of the bag and you can't run from it. Your body is screaming for liberation and sovereignty. And every disease is actually an opportunity to get to know ourselves better. But the medical industry and all this dark Saturn have leveraged our amnesia and our vulnerabilities to make money and to exploit. Yeah. Not everybody does it for that reason, but that's the system and how it's been set up. So once people override that, overcome that, and begin to bring the conventional with the alternative and and it's not even alternative, but the ancient ways, the indigenous, the nature, Mother Earth, and we reconnect with the mother, every single thing we could possibly need is available to us. So every willing soul that's ready to walk away from what you are conditioned to believe is true, is what dissolves it. Because look at it, because it's also contracts and what you consent to. That's dark Saturn. But if you're married to someone, you want to be committed to them, that's not a dark Saturn, right? So you got to determine what you want to keep, what you want to discard, and let the chips fall where they may. For some people, it takes a little bit longer to untangle from dark Saturn because of the families they were born into or the Luciferian covenant or whatever. And for others, it's simply a revelation. It's simply being able to laugh in the face of something that wants to cause you fear and enslavement. So we have all that we need. We just need each other, right? Because we all have different gifts and different things that we're working on. The more we come together in love and compassion. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's no doubt you described Saturn very well. And that's why, I don't know, over the years, on at least 2 occasions, we spent a good 2 hours solid at a time with the 144K meditations on transmuting, removing, disentangling,
incredible,
and removing stuff out of Saturn, because it was like a giant mechanism that was part of the Saturn moon matrix that influenced DNA, or should I say built and maintained negative or false structures. That took some solid focus over the years, and we did
right on for doing all that. I know it's just been enormous the container you've held, and the 144 is like so significant. That activation and just awakening star seeds to their brilliance and their mission. It's been so targeted since childhood. People. So right on with all that you do.
Well, thank you. Just to quickly finish off, the 10-strand draconian DNA, how did that block the stargates that connected us to the full 12 strands? What do you know about that?
Well, the 10th gate is connected to Tiamat. Tiamat exploded, Maldek exploded, in 5D, Tara, Tiamat exploded. And when you look at the planetary grid network and why the Earth is the way that it is, the 7 root races and 5 cloister races were seeded, right? So 7 root races, 5 cloister races, 5 cloister races being the, star seeds or more, in the sort of the multidimensionally aware. And then you've got your root races, Hyperborea, Polaris, Lemuria, Atlantis, Aryan, Merovingian. So 7 plus 5 is 12, the 12-strand DNA. And so after dropping down into this lower harmonic universe, the whole idea was that we would rebuild the 12-strand, the tree of life, through coming in with different different root race background or soul lineage. And that got heavily targeted. So the 10th gate, the 11th gate, which is where the Stonehenge is, where these dark technologies have been placed, because to keep us from activating. So the 10 sphere tree of life that is out there that people sometimes don't realize has 10 spheres is to keep that draconian DNA alive. And then the sons of Belial keep us at like 11 strand to keep us from the 12, because the 12 is that completion. The 13, though, is what braids it all together, because there's been so much fragmentation. The remedial tone has to come in. It doesn't always incarnate. It doesn't always come in. Only when a system is so fallen and so inverted does this remedial flame come in. And it's something we begin to awaken within ourselves. Without that remedial flame, it would have been the 12, it would have been the 7 root races plus the 5 cloister races. We would have been much more aware of the ascension timeline way earlier. But this Anunnaki, and I'm not saying all Anunnaki, but these invader races that compromise our DNA on purpose came in to be the controllers and force us into forgetting who we truly are so that we don't activate this. But it didn't work, and it's not working. So the gates, the stargates and the ley lines that correspond with that within ourselves is what they target on the planet, because through osmosis, we pick up on those energy blocks and those reversal grids. And it streams through the pillars of society, through the things we learn in school, through the galactic history we don't learn about, the chakras we don't hear about, the true story about our DNA and the 12 strand we don't hear about. And so through religion, through the medical industry, through the educational systems, and pretty much everything, government, we're being streamed things that keep all of that alive, and it feeds them and it keeps them the hidden controllers or whatever you want to call them. And because we're able to override that and we're able to switch on what's dormant that you can't destroy, they no longer have a food source. And that's why they're freaking out. That's why they're in their final death throes trying to make life miserable for many of us. But when our endurance is everything. If we can just endure and not lose ourselves along the way to all of this, we literally exhaust them. We're the eternal flame. They're living on stolen light. So when we call it back, the powers that stole, we become the powers that be, because we always were.
Yeah. And just to clarify, folks, beneath each of our strands to me, they look like little mini vortexes, but they're also called stargates, which correlate and connect or get affected by the external Gaia stargates. In this case, we're talking about 11 and 12. All right. Which you Laura, just said gate 11 is at Stonehenge, and where's 12, if that's correct?
Yeah, so Stonehenge, the 13th is Uluru. The 8th and 9th is like Tibet, China, and how those gates go to England, and that's the monad, that's the infinity spiral. And I believe the 12th is in Giza, and the 5th connects. I used to have it all. Like I had presentations on it.
Hard to remember it all. Yeah.
Yeah, but it all like interconnects, right? So you have like a Stargate in Peru that connects with the Stargate, and it's just one Stargate is going to connect to another one in two different locations, and when one gets activated, it activates the other one. So the numbers kind of like blend and mix. If we do another show and you want me to bring slides, I have a lot, but those are some of the ones that I did a long time ago. But the 13th being Uluru was a really, really important one. But Nibiru is connected to the manipulation of the 12th gate. And so the fall of Nibiru and Tiamat, how that connects to the 12. So
I see. Gotcha. Yep. And it's all directly connected and affecting our respective DNA.
Oh, for sure. That's all connected to our DNA strands.
Yeah.
That's
why, folks. That's why, folks, you'll really want to put that 80% focus on yourself, your DNA, your past life healings, and the darkness that keeps certain things in place, preventing you from getting that golden nugget of power, which then directly affects the rest of the planet, therefore planetary freedom. Okay. Sometimes you do put direct external focus on a particular Stargate or grid point or layer of, non-physical plane, etc. 20% of the time. Again, I've found with us over here at the 144K, that ratio, that 80-20 ratio seems to work the best in terms of maximizing acceleration of planetary liberation whilst smoothing it at the same time.
Yeah.
We try to work with these equations that are fundamental to getting us there faster, quicker, but smoother, safely.
Right. Yeah. So Kauai, Hawaii, that Stargate connects to the south of France. That's considered the 12th gate, which corresponds with a particular tribe, right? And the Melchizedek hosting for the Ascension timeline was infiltrated. And because when we come down here, it's very easy for belief systems, rewritten texts, ancient texts, it being passed down because of amnesia, that it begins to, and then the things that got wiped out, so the true history being gone, has made it very, very difficult. So we should be very proud of ourselves for how far we've come, and the fact that we're doing it.
We're making it, and we're sticking with it. We're sticking with it. We're planning on building our numbers in a big way to, again, accelerate it all.
Nice.
From within to then go without and transform the without part of it. Again, critical, I would even call them protocols, not even just principles. Based in truth, if anyone wants to get free, that is. Let's finish off with, okay. So the goal is to raise our frequency above the level of what a machine consciousness, in other words, AI, can mimic. So how can we work with Gaia's organic consciousness to do that? What does that, how would that look like in our 3D reality? Other than anything that you may not have covered already.
Well, I mean, there's always the inversion and then the higher octave, right? So I have a lot of presentations on the zodiac and the signs, each sign, the inversion, but also the higher octave and what DNA strand it connects to. And being more conscious and mindful, not on autopilot is really where it's at. And it doesn't mean everybody needs to learn this or their astrology, but it's just being mindful because every day matters. Every moment matters. When we look at the South Node in Virgo right now and the North Node in Pisces, the South Node is forcing us to look at Virgo. The body, mind, spirit communication is basically what the South Node to North Node between the Virgo to Pisces actually is all about, because we want to integrate polarity. The nodes force us to integrate polarity instead of, just be polarized over here and not over there. And so the anchoring of heaven on earth is Neptune, the multidimensional, and Mercury, Virgo, earth sign, and all the other, oppositions of earth signs. So Mercury is the magician. How does the mind talk to the body? If it's speaking programmings to the body is not going to respond in the healthiest of ways. That's where you can begin to deprogram. You got to really look at your pain, your injuries, your unwellness, and get to know it. Really give it a voice, because the fallen version of Saturn is time, prison, karma, and punishment, right? The original essence is actually, it wasn't just a sun, it's a feminine sun. And it's like, it connects with the cosmic womb even, right? So, time is not so linear. It's like a spiral. So when we look at the rings of Saturn even, and the fact that that's dissolving, I mean, it's happening whether we're participating or not. So that's one important thing to know. You just really want to, the inner work is getting to know yourself, allowing adversity, challenge, dis-ease to push you into knowing yourself better.
And knowing where it really comes from.
Yeah,
what
because
really caused it, what's underneath it, and what's keeping it in place, hiding and eluding it from you in terms of the cause.
Yeah, because the inversion is all about the answers are outside of you. The doctor will tell you, the teacher will teach you. And I'm not saying that there aren't good doctors and teachers out there, but is it really teaching us about who we truly are? It's forcing us into something that feels very, foreign, but we've been conditioned to accept it as reality. And if it can bridge into the ascension energies, you'll see a lot of, doctors and teachers that, want to integrate these higher, aspects in that will really help develop a child, not try and indoctrinate them. Indoctrination has been the worst thing. Everything since childhood. What were we exposed to? What were we put in front of? How were our parents? What kind of wounds do we have? So everything that causes us pain or dis-ease is unresolved and buried memories and traumas that just need to be brought into the light. And once we do that, we're like home free. And the thing is, it's like, here's the diagnosis, here's the medicine. What about, understanding that the minute you locate it and change your dialogue with your body and start to change the conversation, this is what epigenetics is based on. We can literally rewrite the script. So Mercury ruling our physiology, Virgo, that has to also do with routine, habits, what we ingest, what we put in our body. It impacts the stomach. Literally just feed yourself nutrition, good friends, healthy friends, things that, your connection with all of that, your connection with, Mother Earth, and allow this stuff to come up to the surface and let it set you free. We're taught to fear these things. Somebody else has the answer for us. So when I work with clients and I look at their chart, it's how do we get to know the root of this, how it's impacting you, and how to not disassociate from it and have somebody else take over. If you're going to work with a professional, let them allow you to be even more of a part of it than they are, because the dismissal of your innate wisdom and knowledge and intuition and connection to higher self, we're being stripped from the minute we're born. So allow everything that feels wrong to be an opportunity to make it right. And that's where the alchemy comes in. So the nodal axis right now, with the South Node, Virgo, North Node, Neptune, Pisces, is allowing us to see where entity attachments and archons and distortion has been the result of programmings that our mind speaks to our body. It causes us to age. It causes us to be in that Nephilim reversal grid. But when we reach further and deeper into the creative imagination and into our dreams, our visions, and all that's possible, you begin to blow the mind of the doctors. You say, that's not even possible. How did that happen? My father, he was on his ninth jab. Leukemia, double lung pneumonia. He was under the doctor's rules and their authority. Once he set himself free from it, and he had like 1 week, 2 weeks left to live in hospice, and he started to listen to me and my sister and took the herbs we gave him, he's now living his life and he's very healthy. It's
There
like,
you go.
so somebody even that, programmed by or under the thumb of that, knew that he had nothing to lose. So he chose love.
Yeah.
Chose to feel empowered. It wasn't about trying to red pill him. It was like, well, he's on his deathbed. What does he have to lose? Fine, I'll take that green food. Fine, I'll wear that LifeWave pack. Fine, I'll have that bee pollen. Stuff he might not ever consider, but he had nothing left to lose. So when we look at this new moon, when we look at the breaking points of your life, and the worst, most adverse things, it's an opportunity to rescue your treasures, not get further entangled in the fear and in the pain. Let it be an opportunity for your liberation instead of the opposite. It's all about perception and rewriting the script with that Mercury.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It is all about understanding, and I always teach people that a certain form of remote viewing where they can go into their either present life or past life stuff with a simple technique to transmute and retrieve, and it's made a night and day difference for them. They felt lighter in the chest, anxiety gone, depression, anguish, fear and loathing gone. Things start to flow better. But you got to, in the right way, using the right tools, you got to still face that thing and see what really is the cause underneath whatever the symptom is, whether it's emotional or physical ailment. Ultimately, they're just symptoms.
Right, totally.
That's really
it. And if you look at Cancer in the chart, that's the mother, that's the moon, right? When you look at the lunar inversions and the amount of blocked energy or toxic energy and just the way things have been and what we've been taught, what has been modeled to us, how the grids have been messed with, that is now a name of a disease. So the return of the mother and the healing of that lunar energy to get into the higher octave, is also going to create a lot of healing. And the mitochondrial damage passed down generation to generation. So when we can all just face this healing journey with spiritual maturity and realize, this is the gateway to recovering ourselves instead of feeling like we're just heading into like nowhere good, then nothing but solutions open up. And that's the trajectory of synchronicities, connected to Uranus, connected to the higher mind, connected to truth. And that living your truth and being authentic with yourself allows you to ask all the necessary questions and begin to allow the higher mind to be what informs Mercury, that informs the body. That is the key to miracles. People have, and I see these kind of documentaries every day, have defied the odds. It didn't matter what their doctor told them. Didn't matter. They've done miraculous things because when that signal with your higher self is not in static because it's just in the monkey mind or with other people's voices, other people's opinions, the resurrection of intuition and higher mind is the key to ascension.
Yep, certainly. And people, from a scientific perspective, we all have to remind ourselves. People got to know, especially newer star seeds and light workers that are coming online. Ultimately, everything comes or is created by scalar waves, and people have got to realize those scalar waves are either emanating from dark consciousness or light consciousness, and scalar waves affect scalar waves. So if you know how to direct your mind with the right tools, you can change those scalar waves, no matter how reversed they are. And lo and behold, you get these so-called miracles in health, healing, and all the things that you've just described, Laura.
Right.
Your father was a good example of that.
Right.
And so let's move on to finish up. There's a lot of competing streams of information out there, okay, about how this planet is being liberated. So one stream of information is, the false simulation is being dismantled, which is true. That's a big part of it. But another is, we're literally going to be saved by beings, by ETs, the Galactic Confederation, whoever. They're the ones that are going to save us. So there's another stream of thought that we have to save ourselves instead. And there's another one where the movie's about to end. You can kick back, relax, no need to do anything. What's your take on these competing, essentially, streams of information?
Yeah. Well, I don't want to, negate the Galactic Federation, but as I've gotten to know Dan Cooper, who is a physicist, inventor on the level of Tesla, working with the 6th, 7th, 8th force of nature. He also did a 20 and back. He got immunities, though, and never signed an NDA. He's given me all sorts of really, really incredible information, particularly about the Galactic Federation. He said the Federation of Light, Worlds, and Planets is all the same. And the way that they hide the psyops connected to the Federation of Worlds is to change the name and say, oh, no, it's the one Galactic Federation of Light, which is the psyops. So I'm just saying this just for discernment's sake. I don't like to form fixed opinions, but everything that has come through from the GFW, Galactic Federation of Worlds, has really, really not resonated with me. The emissary and some of the things that I've seen have not resonated with me. I don't feel that Enki or any Anunnaki is going to come with some medbed to restore our Grail DNA, because the Anunnaki tinkered with our DNA. We don't need the Anunnaki or Enki to return anything to us, because we are returning to ourselves. This is a process of reconnection, of reclamation, of restoration in relationship to Mother Earth, the Sophionic energy, the remedial flame, and how it's come in order to just return everything back to source. And it's something that moves through us. It's something that's a part of us. It's something that is built into us to align with the guardian souls, the guardian groups, the guardian founder races, which are not part of the GFW, which are connected also to military, and a lot of deep state agreements were made with the GFW, also with the Nordics. I mean, there's so much history there that I stay away from it. I stay away from all GFW stuff. I'm not saying it's all negative, but a lot of there's 60 like different species and like 600 spacefaring ones, and there's so much information I have, and I'm going to write another book about it just because it's kind of important for these times. We don't need to rely on outside saviors. And the thing is, a lot of the emissaries say, oh, it's not about them saving the day. But in the same breath, it's like, if you don't use these technologies and you're part of the deep state and you're allowing the deep state to win, that is very manipulative. So you can tell with the way certain things are expressed that it doesn't have that unconditional love or appreciation for sovereignty. It's very much into shaming. It's in a competition. It bans you and deletes you if you ask any questions. And we should be very discerning about anything Anunnaki, both Enlil and Enki. So that's just my take on that without naming names. I'm sure it's obvious to some. I feel the Guardian groups, we are part of the Guardians. I wouldn't say they're coming to save the day, but Eisenhower worked closely with Val Thor. They appealed to the Guardians. The Guardians and the Covenant of Paladoria and, things in our ancient history were always going to play a role in ascension and helping the, lost souls of Tara and the things that happened in previous cycles beyond this particular earth plane have always had a presence. But it's the Christos Sophia. It's the reclamation of that. And the Guardian founder races are all about that and reconnecting to that 0-point unified field. It doesn't come and save the day, but it's sort of like, the sun is going to give you nourishment. Are you going to stand and allow yourself to feel into those codes, or to go to a sacred site and do that grid work, and experience the transmission of energies in that exchange, right? The Guardian founder groups and the original planetary grid network are all very connected to this healing process, but we are very, very much a part of it. That's why they're not coming to save the day, but they're helping, with this bifurcation, because they are a part of the original, seeding of humans. And the fallen groups, like the fallen Elohim, the fallen Seraphim, and certain factions of the Anunnaki are to actually get in the way of this reclamation. So the Guardians, and yeah, Lisa Renee's work and knowing the fullness of our galactic history, but taking responsibility and stepping up to the plate and discovering what it is within is what's being encouraged. Nothing is going to come do it for us, but it stands in an unconditional, loving way, in the same way God and Earth and our own higher self and intuition is. It won't abandon us, but we can only abandon it, right?
Yep, certainly. And our off-world brethren, as I call them, they really are doing what they can safely enough for us and them to be able to positively influence and guide us to see things the right way, have the right realizations, the guidance to do the right thing, apply that 80-20 rule of internal versus external focus. And because they're having their fair share of some pretty hair-raising moments, and they can do with us returning the favor through predominantly mass meditations, yes, but again, we always prefer psychic surgery type mass meditations where, let's just say, you get a lot more bang for your buck, if I can use that expression, without relying on huge numbers, which is always difficult to organize and make happen. And speaking of which, just to finish up, if you'll allow me, Laura, for a brief minute, we do have a 144K mass meditation. It'll be about 2 hours for huge planetary impact and timeline shifting. This new moon, we're here on the West Coast and Mountain Time, we're going to be getting up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the Midwest, I guess, and to get up to be ready for the peak 2-hour period of the new moon in Libra. Again, to have the biggest impact to a lot more than just working on Gaia's organic grids and fix the reversals there, but to really focus in on those specific blocks that almost reverses everything in the most positive way. And I won't go into examples and case studies of the past of how we influence things, but I just want to let everyone know, if you want to be a part of that, go to 144karmyoflight.org. And with that, I want to finish off with, Laura, are light warriors, light workers, starseeds, really it's all the same thing under the starseed umbrella, are we shifting into a new phase of our mission? You know, one where we don't have to transmute negative energies as much as in the past, especially since 2020, and where we can, I suppose, enjoy our mission more.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think for sure. A lot of it is because of, empathy and just feeling everything, and you kind of got to feel it to heal it. And a lot of these, forces and it moves through, one's body. A lot of us use our bodies to transmute and shift energy, and we take on a lot, or our energy field just encompasses so much more than just our own personal life. Right. So, when we look at lower emotions and low frequency energy, which is stored in our cells from past experiences and traumas,
that affects our ability to heal and transmute the world, the external.
So like you're talking about, scalar waves, the plasma waves and Schumann resonance and the ether and the 13th sign and all this stuff is really, helping to move that out and clear it. Now, some of us have been doing that kind of work and know that that's part of doing, the deeper soul work. Sometimes we lose our space to other people that have a lot of unprocessed emotions, and we, kind of take it on, or we see that, people that are consenting and complying and not seeing through things are keeping, our children in danger, and keeping a lot of, the stuff that needs to come up to the surface is being laughed at, or it's all conspiracy. We see a lot of madness still. There's a lot of madness, but I think part of the bifurcation is letting go, allowing our compassionate nature and our empathy to not work against us. I think a lot of us can't go down that road anymore of just taking it on, absorbing it, feeling everything.
No, you need the healthy boundaries.
Yeah, because I remember even as a kid, my mom's wanted, because I was crying all the time. I was just releasing energy. I'm like, no, it's the collective, it's the planet. Just stop thinking it's me, Mom. And I had to break from that. And I think the more we come together, like what you're doing, the meditations, the less divide and conquer. Because even in some of these circles and communities, you'd be surprised at how much ridiculousness happens at certain events, and there's not a lot of harmony or cooperation amongst people. And I think that's where it's at. That those that just want that and are all about that are having a lot more discernment and boundaries. To anybody that wants to drag you into conflict, drama, competition, negative ego, people that you might not have expected would even go there. I just think, and just we're at a different phase. So much has been cleared, so much has already been collapsed, and now I just really feel it's about embodiment. Saturn and Aries moving. Saturn and Neptune and Aries conjunct. Moving back into Aries is really the embodiment of the divine human, and really bringing that dream and vision in of the world we want to see. And it's kind of like as the bifurcation splits and there's a bridge between the two splits, it's like, where to find us. We're over here. It's going to be less about having our boat almost sink, trying to pull people out of a sinking ship, right? And I think it just can't work that way anymore. There's been enough information put out there, enough grid work done, enough of victory to be had for people to need to find it within themselves to begin to move in that direction without our lives being put on the line to try and get them to snap out of it. And that's what I learned with my father. I didn't have to red pill him. I didn't have to convince him of anything. It was when he was at his breaking point and he had nothing left to lose did he begin to listen. And I think a lot of humans are going to have something similar happen. And we're going to be over here with open arms and nothing but love and compassion to the process without it being something that we almost find ourselves drowning in, because the empathy could be really heavy because we care so much. It doesn't mean we stop caring. It's just we're going to go live our lives. We're going to go celebrate and have fun, and we'll make sure you know where to find us when you're ready.
Yeah, that's right. And when that happens, I think that's at the period or point of planetary liberation itself, whereby even though it's a long process, there's a culmination point where we're definitely free. The whole planet's free, okay, which we're working close towards. And is in terms of starseeds moving to a next level of their soul mission or not, I believe the first level or phase is simply planetary liberation itself, and making that happen and doing our part in whatever way that is. That's the overarching thing in terms of all of our soul purpose and the existing or current phase. Upon planetary liberation and henceforth after that, that's when we're going to go more in our specific own soul path ways in terms of how we're going to start healing and rejuvenating humanity and the earth as part of that reintegration back to galactic society.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's two phases, in other words. One more singular and collective, planetary liberation. The second one is our own respective soul talents and purposes, whether it's plants, whether it's technology, whether it's healing human psychology, whether it's information and correct information, in the various fields.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, it's a bit different, for everybody, but it all connects, because when we're in our truth and authenticity, when we're really doing what we came here to do, there's no system that's being fed anymore that just wants to take energy, take our creativity and battery up these artificial timelines. And yes, we were warning people. Yes, it was all about getting the information out there, about putting the channels out there and spreading the word, right? Spreading the word, right? And because we were able to see that, we know why we came, and a lot of us woke up real early and could see through it. But a lot of us have also maybe put some things aside in order to play that role. That now, I mean, I think it's just really time to live and work together in community, build community, and people are called to different things. We're going to be in a time of massive rehabilitation for a lot of souls that are newly awakening, that have survived cults, that have survived religion, that have survived pedophilia, with humans not turning a blind eye anymore. Now we can really help victims of things that most people don't believe even happened. So there's going to be some that are called to do that. Others that are called to, go get land and just be over there. Some that are called to leave this physical plane and go to a different experience. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag, but I do agree that we're in a phase 2, and that this new moon is really setting that in motion, and same with the last eclipse. I think the most important thing that's going to determine how things split is, are you in your heart or not? It's not about the judgment of, oh, you were asleep and you got you made this bad decision. That doesn't matter. It's more about, can we come together and love one another and appreciate the varying degrees of where we are in our soul path, and like really look to help one another, and allow the heart space and spirit to be the ultimate alchemist, so that we realize there's no right or wrong in the way that our lives have been. It's about the now and what we can embody. I just don't think that there's any bioweapon or any dark weaponry or any mind control or social engineering agenda that wins in any soul that's alive. And if they have an open mind and if they're heart centered, they'll be right up to speed. And the unwillingness to be there, or that's a choice, and maybe they need a trauma imprint before they come in again and then figure it out the next time. It's okay to let go, but the resources need to be available. They can't be censored, they can't be hidden, they can't be mocked, they can't be targeted. And if all that is able to be a part of society as a choice when you're in school, to instead go to a healing center with real tools and modalities instead of stand in line to get a jab, because that's what the system tells you. It all has to be available. The hidden scientists and inventors and the free energy has got to be available. So when dark Saturn lifts, it means everything that embodies the solution comes to the surface. And so many people already, have that, but may have put it at the, like you said, and like we were saying, some things have been put on the side just to get the word out. Now it's like, let's harmonize and cooperate with all the gifts and abilities we have. And then those resources are going to override people wanting to go to the doctor anymore, going the conventional route. And you'll find a lot of doctors and teachers and people that were caught up in the system joining us and taking their knowledge and what they learned and mixing it with these new concepts and ideas. So I see a major, I just see us all moving out of judgment and more cooperation and unity. And anybody who's opposed to that are connected to deep state control agendas masked as some sort of ET race coming along. And that's where we have to have discernment, because we absolutely have what it takes to save ourselves. And then the veil lifts and we see our galactic family. We see the beings that have always been on our side, that have been working with us in a way to inspire us, not do it for us.
Well, folks, to literally manifest that, actualize that in the physical here in this third density, it really does come down to removing blocks, both the internal and external. And to that effect, feel free to join. Laura, what's your preferred website you would like to send people to?
So cosmicgaia.org is my website. I do a subscriber thing, and I do Zoom calls like once a week. And I do mini readings. We just all talk, and we talk about this kind of stuff. And people navigating difficult relationships and family situations, or moving, or careers, and being on a more awakened path. Everything pretty much is there. I got my YouTube channel back. And I hope anybody who's listening that's in Sedona can come on November 8th. And I just want to thank you so much for having me. But cosmicgaia.org has all my social media.
Fantastic. Check it out, folks. CosmicDiet.org. Subscribe.
Cosmic Gaia. COSMIC Gaia. Cosmic, and then Gaia, GAIA.org.
I do beg your pardon. CosmicGaia.org. Go there and subscribe, and And of course, if you want to maximize your impact on planetary liberation whilst stabilizing things even further, both internally, not just externally, head on over to 144karmyoflight.org. And Laura, it has been, I think this is our third, maybe even fourth, but third very successful discussion here on Ground Crew Command. Thank you for taking the time to be with us, and check out the websites, everybody, and any parting words.
No, I just thank you so much for having me. And so much of the different concepts that I've shared, you can find in my book, Awakening the Truth Frequency. You can find that on Amazon or cccpublishing.com. And I've just got a lot of presentations that go into great detail. And I'm going to be sharing a lot more of that. The Sedona event will be live streamed, so jump on that. And then I have a webinar at the end of the month I'm going to put on my website. That's an online event, and it'll have a Q&A. So just wanted to mention that. And yeah, I just look forward to more community building and just, embracing the healing process and making it more fun instead of scary. Like, this is reclamation. This is not, we have nothing but ourselves to look forward to, and all the beauty that can come through when, we choose love and respect and, mutual support to this process. And let's pat ourselves on the back. We've done amazing. We're still sticking in there. And I'm just all about community and love and unity and appreciate what you're doing. And I look forward to connecting with you more soon and sharing more about your meditations. So let's talk about that. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, humankind is literally a 3-minute drive from where I'm conducting this very interview now, from where I live. So I've got no excuses not to come and see you and give you a big hug. Along with my partner, who's one of the organizers, and that'll be wonderful. And folks, that's 18 days away. It's October the 20th now. This is November 8th. So if you're anywhere in the Southwest or Midwest, head on over. It's a day's drive. Head on over, book your hotel or Airbnb, and come and meet Laura and I, and it'll be wonderful. We've got, seemingly, because it's gotten really strong this past couple of years, a true blue Tachyon chamber that's literally connected to a similar sort of contraption on Genesis 2 satellite. Very robust Tachyon chamber here in Sedona as well. So click the link in the information box where you'll have mine and Laura's websites there. And thank you once again, Laura.
My pleasure. And
see you in roughly 18 days.
I'll see you very soon. Yes. Bye, everybody.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks again, folks. That was another huge episode of Ground Crew Command Radio. And thank you, Laura. We'll see you soon. And take care, folks. Remember, mass meditation coming right up in, literally 12 hours from now, just under 12 hours from now. So again, head on over to 144karmyoflight.org and join the Army of Light that's taking matters into their own hands. Let's do it, folks. This is your loving servant, the Unknown Light Warrior. You've been listening to Ground Crew Command Radio.